Black world and the Black business school. I will give you guys a chance to come into the chat as we get started. Please go ahead and get comfortable. We're going to have a conversation about something that I was just reading about. And, to tell you the truth, I'm going to read some of it to you, but I'm not going to read all of it to you because I can pretty much summarize it for you pretty quickly. Hey, Andrew, what's going on? It's one of those things where, it's something where I want to kind of make a point on this topic. And I think that it's important for us to kind of understand this. Okay, so first of all, as we get started, please hit the thumbs up button as you come in, hit the share button and the subscribe button. If you are on Facebook, just know that Facebook works very, very hard to deboost posts that they do not want to reach the masses. That's why I have 80,000 people that follow me and only about 200 people get notified when I go live. So if you could share this to your page real quick, Ron and Jarius and everybody else on Facebook, I'd appreciate it. Also, Andrew, Tazdet, TJ, Lamarcus, etc. If you're on YouTube, one thing I just found out is that with YouTube, you will not get a regular notification if I go live. You might get one, you might not. If you want to be guaranteed to get a notification, you can do it in a couple of ways. One thing you can do is go ahead and hit that notification bell beneath the subscription link. If you hit the notification bell on drboycetv.com, then you can actually get a notification whenever I go live. So everybody, please hit the bell, ding, 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 hit the bell. Okay, so shout out your city, shout out the city that you're from. Because I like to see what cities you're coming from. What's going on, Mark? And Rika Coco says you're up late, Dr. Boyce. Yes, I am up late. And my nickname growing up actually was Coco. And also the 12-year-old in our house, her nickname is Coco. So we got Cocos everywhere. So here's what I want to discuss. All right, so I was reading this report about something with the FBI and how they spied on Martin Luther King Jr. Basically, there's a report that says they allege that King had affairs with 40 women, and they also try to claim that he watched another pastor rape a woman. Right now, I don't believe that to be true. But then again, you don't know what goes on in people's personal lives. You just know that allegations can be made, and we also know we're also sort of trying to balance that with with COINTELPRO. Are you familiar with COINTELPRO? Like, yes or no? Give me a yes or no if you're familiar with what COINTELPRO is and what it does and how it works and all this other stuff. So give me a yes or no. All right, so COINTELPRO, just to give you a quick summary, is basically kind of this government campaign that's ongoing. It's still going to this day, I have no doubt. And it's designed to kind of create chaos and confusion. It's not so much, they don't necessarily have to discredit people completely, but, it's kind of like one of those things where they will take somebody, it's very smart, right? What they do is they take advantage of the fact that when we have somebody that we look up to, we almost worship them like a god. We put them on a pedestal that no human being can survive on because the air is too thin for a human being to even breathe at that level. You must be a god to breathe at the top of Mount Everest. And so when we put people on this high pedestal of a god, you start to see them as individuals who are not human anymore. You stop believing that they want to have sex like everybody else. You stop believing that they could have ever done anything wrong to anybody. You stop believing that they could have an imperfection. So because you put them on this pedestal, which is our fault, that's what we do to our heroes. That's why I don't put anybody on a pedestal. I never will. I don't want you to put me on a pedestal. When we put people on that pedestal, it makes it very easy to knock those people down. It makes it very easy for them to come back and say, ha ha, we found out that Martin Luther King is not a perfect man. And that means everything else he ever did in his life was bad because there's no way a bad man could do good things, right? But is that true? That's true. I mean, give me a yes or no. I need some response on this so we can make sure we're on the same page. Yes or no? Here you go. Can a good person do a bad thing? Yes or no? Has there ever been good people who've done bad things in their lives? Maybe people in prison who are good people who made a mistake. Yes or no? Let's agree on this so we can understand where I'm coming from with this. I'm going to do the math for you. You guys know I'm a mathematician, so I'm going to do 2 + 2 = 4. Because out here in this world, they're teaching you that 2 + 2 is 186. I'm here to hopefully fix that. Okay. Thank you for your answer. Next question. Is it possible for a bad person to do good things? Yes or no? Can there be a bad person who, a serial killer who would be maybe, let's say that we define that as a bad person. Let's say that serial killer, once bought some flowers for a lady, or helped an old woman across the street, or babysat a child and didn't harm that child. Is that possible? Yes. In fact, some of you in here, and I'm not going to ask you to answer this question, but because I already know the answer. Some of you in here, have probably in your life done things that showed incredible goodness to other people. And some of you may have done things that you probably wouldn't brag about on CNN, put it that way. That if they was to go check your email, read through your Facebook messages, record every phone conversation you ever had, document everything you've ever done, talk to every person who was mad at you, every ex-girlfriend you ever had, every ex-boyfriend you ever had, every ex-friend you ever had, talk to all your enemies. I bet some of you have things in your past that you would probably not be so proud of, right? Well, why is that common? Well, that's normal, because you're human. That's what you are. You're human. Human beings are not black and white. They're shades of gray. Everybody is. And so one of the things I will say is that when we get into the space of hero worship, with Dr. King, because I'm not going to sit here and say that I know anything about Dr. King's private life. I don't know anything about the affairs. I don't know anything about any of the other stuff that they say. But I'm going to say that I think it's important that we don't put people on such a pedestal that nobody can live there, where somebody can come along and say, well, I know you think he's a good guy, but let me tell you, he did this one thing here, and that discredits every single thing he's ever done. That's what they do in politics. They do that all the time. That's why you get shitty politicians who lie to you. The reason you get shitty politicians who lie to you is because the politicians who are honest, who say, look, I made some mistakes. I still have some other things that I'm not so proud of, but I got some good ideas. People who do that, they get hammered so badly, they get beaten so badly in public, that good people who really have good ideas don't even run for office, because they're like, damn, if they find out I had bad credit, if they find out that, I once got arrested, or if they find out that I stole some cookies when I was 22 years old or whatever, then they're going to drag me through the coals, right? So what you get is you get these liars, you get these perfect little liars who who literally feed your fantasy. They feed your perfect little fantasy that you believe that your heroes are supposed to be perfect and have never, ever done anything wrong. And so you get bad politicians as a result of that. And then when you find out that they're lying, then it's a big scandal. Like, oh my God, he had an affair 10 years ago. That means every single idea he's ever had is worthless. So we got to get rid of him so we can get somebody else who can give us the lie that they can actually protect and maintain to make us feel good about ourselves. I think this is what happens with Martin Luther King. Also, other examples of COINTELPRO are just situations where their goal is just to create chaos, just to come in and make you wonder if the person's trustworthy. So, in fact, if you guys want to know, just to be real with you, when I talk to you, I deliberately like to show you parts of me that are not perfect. I like the fact that I'll cuss and be like, look, motherfucker, that I'll do that, because I don't want you putting me on a pedestal. I don't want you looking at me as Mr. Perfect. I want you to look at me as a regular black man who's a human being just like you, who's doing his best. That's the best way I can be aspirational to you, is to say, I ain't perfect, you ain't perfect, but we all we got. We all that we got. Please repeat that in the chat for me. We are all we got. We are all we got. We can't, as a community, grow and benefit and solve problems if we are looking for perfect little superheroes to come along like the Avengers and do all the work. You somehow somebody tells you that because you are flawed, because you went to jail, or because you ain't got enough money, or because you didn't finish college, or because you made some mistakes, or because you got a divorce, or because you went bankrupt, or because you made some mistakes, that people will make you think that you're not worthy of leadership. They will make you think that you're not good enough. And I'm just here to tell you today that you are good enough. You are good enough. People, you go to church, and I don't even understand it. I was listening to I think it was a Beyonce song. It was like a gospel song. And the whole song, all they kept saying is, I'm not worthy. I'm not worthy. I'm not worthy. I'm not worthy. And I understand it. You want to humble yourself before God. But I kind of contradict that. And to say that we are worthy. I am worthy. Right. The only way I can sit in front of you and deal with all the hate and the haterology and the player hater degrees and the player haterism and all the haters and all the negativity and the craziness and the chaos and the criticism, the only way I can stand in front of you and endure all of that with a smile on my face and not give a shit is because I decided that I am worthy. And I want you, and again, this ain't about Martin Luther King. Great guy, he's a great man. God bless him, but he's dead, man. He's dead. He's on your wall. He did his job. He made his contribution. Now the question is, what contribution are we going to make, right? And so, in order for us to really make the contribution and to continue those legacies of the important people who came before us, whether it's King or Malcolm or these are specific personalities. Now, mind you, we have thousands of other people whose names you'll never know who made tremendous sacrifices for the community. Let's not forget them too. But the best way we can contribute, the first thing we must do is we must decide that we are worthy. And so I just want you to just kind of accept this in your heart that I am worthy. Whatever it is you want to do, I need you to say it. I am worthy. You want to start a business and become the first millionaire in your family, you got to start by reminding yourself, I am worthy. If you want to go out and finish school and get a medical degree or whatever, I am worthy. You want to become successful and become an activist in your community, I am worthy. And you have to know these things so that when you get out there and people start throwing rocks at you and they start saying, oh, well, I knew the little nigga when he wasn't shit. That's what people do. That's what everybody always does. It happens to me too. I get people from 30 years ago to be like, yeah, I remember you in the 12th grade when you did the blah, 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 blah. And I'll be like, man, get the fuck out of my face. Seriously, like at the end of the day, and I'm connecting this with the Dr. King thing because in the connection, maybe you don't see the connection while I'm talking about this, while it seems like I'm talking about that. I'm talking about this while I'm talking about that because I wanted to ultimately come back to you. This ain't about whether or not we think Dr. King is a great man or not. That's decided to me. There ain't nothing they can say about Martin Luther King that's going to cause me to think that he was not still a tremendous contribution to our society. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. I don't know. Yes or no. Tell me yes or no. Any of these reports, the reports about the affairs or whatever, is that going to change your opinion of Dr. King? Is that going to make you think of him as less of a man or less of a contributor to the community? Is that where you're going? I'd be curious. Yes or no. Is that going to change anything for you? Because it ain't changing nothing for me. I'm just going to tell you, it ain't going to change nothing for me. And so I don't know who they're even talking to. If they want to put these stories out, which they will continue to do that, then that's fine. They could say anything about King, and I'm still that does not change what he did, right? Whatever the other things that might have happened that had nothing to do with me, maybe they happened, maybe they didn't. But what I pay attention to is what you did for the community and what you did for me, right? So ultimately, at the end of the day, where it comes back to you is at the same time, we have to be really cautious and thoughtful about hero worship, about putting people on these insane pedestals that no human being can reach. I remember when Obama first got elected to the White House, and I gave a speech at this church, and it was a black church in Long Island. I remember at this church, they were so happy that Obama had just got elected that they changed the words to the song "We Shall Overcome," and they changed the words to "We Have Overcome." They literally changed the words from "we shall overcome" to "we have overcome," which made me very nervous. And then I saw a lady who came out with a beautiful portrait of Obama, and I said, "Oh, ma'am, that's a beautiful picture. Where'd you get that?" And she said, "Oh, I bought it over there at the table, and I'm gonna take it home and put it right next to my pictures of Martin Luther King and Jesus." And I was thinking, wow, she's comparing this man to Jesus. That ain't gonna work. That ain't gonna end well. And I think that this hero worship, we got to be really careful about it. And I think kind of just understand that people, that nobody's perfect. In fact, the more perfect they pretend to be, the more imperfect they typically are. Like Bill Cosby made that mistake. Bill Cosby kind of went through life acting like he was perfect. So when the scandals come out, it was a big deal. If that had been Charles Barkley in those accusations, nobody would have, shook your head. If that had been Allen Iverson or something, people would have been like, "Yeah, I kind of thought so," right? Tiger Woods did the same thing. Tiger Woods went around pretending that he was perfect, and it turns out that he wasn't, and then it became a big scandal, right? So it is true. The same thing happens when you talk about stock markets. When you think that a company's perfect, and then any little thing happens, it triggers a massive shock to the stock price because you're used to things going a specific way, and then suddenly that little bit of information throws you off your game. So I think that a better way to go through almost everything, at least this is what I do. What I do is when I'm evaluating people and evaluating stuff, I just assume that you got some shit you ain't told me. I assume that there's some stuff that I probably wouldn't enjoy. I assume every single one of you, from Demetrius to Ralph to everybody else, you cannot convince me that you are nearly as perfect as you might be tempted to pretend to be. So when you meet me, don't even pretend like you're perfect. Just know that you're worthy despite your imperfections. Know that you're worthy because you're working to get better. Know that you're worthy because even if you are a bad person in other areas, you're trying to do a good thing. You know, I think about my uncle. My uncle was not a good man in certain ways. He made a lot of mistakes. He was in and out of jail, but he was like an older brother to me. And I appreciate that. You know, I look back at that and I say, you know, he was a man who will be defined by society to not be a good man, but he was good to me. So if I'm going to give him criticism for the bad things he did, I must also give him credit for the good things that he did, because that's the way it is for most people. Right. So anyway, please hit the thumbs up button, the share button, the subscribe button. Just a reminder, if you're watching on YouTube, please, to get notifications, you got to hit that bell. Hit that bell if you want to be notified whenever I go live. I just figured that out today. So if you hit the bell, then that'll help us reach each other a little bit better. Also, the All Black National Convention is the weekend of September 27th in Houston. I hope you guys will come out. And also, I'll be in Louisville, Kentucky on the 14th in a few days, and then I'll be in New York City doing a day-long investment seminar on the I think on the west side of Fifth Avenue. So if you'd like to join that, it's going to be there for, we're going to do this for the whole day. So feel free to go to drboyceseminars.com if you'd like to learn more. That's drboyceseminars.com. Okay, so let's see. I see someone, Marquis says, how can I ask you a couple of questions about classes? Well, if you want to ask the question here, I'll try to catch it, Marquise. But if you have any questions about any classes in the Black Business School, we actually have enrollment specialists and wealth plan specialists that are right there waiting to talk to you. So if you go to theblackbusinessschool.com, they can have a chat with you. They can video chat with you. They can phone chat with you. In fact, I'll give you a phone number. Somebody write this down. The number is 773-302-0212. Yeah, 773-302-0212. So if you call that number, they'll talk to you. So yeah, I agree with you, Kevin. So credibility is always targeted. In fact, I've had people target my credibility because they saw I had a lot of credibility, right? They saw that, you know, that people believe me because I know what the fuck I'm talking about. I've been teaching college students for 25 years. It's hard to compete with that when you're trying to tell me that my financial ideas are stupid, right? But what'll happen is I've had people try to come out and target my credibility. And I'm like, yeah, I guess that's what you do, right? You take away the thing that the person has that makes them the strongest, right? And the way I honestly deal with that is I come out and I say, look, number one, you can believe me or you cannot believe me. That's fine. Number two, I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'm here to encourage you to think for yourself. So if I give you some information and you're not sure about it, then you should probably go verify that. Like, why would you just believe me just because I told you? I don't want to train. I'm not training you like a bunch of monkeys. I'm not I mean, I might be one of your advisors, but I'm certainly not the Pied Piper who's going to talk you into doing things that are not good for you and your family. I need you to win. I don't want Boyce to win. I need you to win, period. Like, that's what I'm here for. That's why I do this every day. And then on top of that, I'm like, no, I'm pretty fucked up, I'm sure, in certain areas. I don't know. I mean, even Alicia loves me from here to kingdom come, but I'm sure she could come up with a long list of a bunch of things about Boyce that are less than wonderful. And it is what it is. I'm not a perfect man. In fact, if I were perfect, I'd probably cuss a lot less, and or my backdrop would look a little bit neater, or maybe I would probably not do stupid things like do videos with me wearing a dinosaur suit at a 9-year-old's birthday party. But I do that shit because I need y'all to just know that I'm human. Like, I am not trying to be anybody's superhero or be put on a pedestal. I'm a dude, right? I just happen to know a lot of shit. I'm 48 years old and I have a PhD. I've had a PhD for 17 years. So I probably know some things that can help you, right? That's what it is. That's what we do. We help each other. I help you. You help me. You guys help us build the Black Business School into a legendary institution that's going to be around for hundreds of years after we're gone. That's what I'm asking you guys to help me do. And what I'll do in exchange is I will be here for you as a support mechanism, as a provider of information, as a guide, as a person who's cheering for you. And when you see me on the street, don't hug me and say, damn, Doc, I think I think you're great. I appreciate that. But I need you to tell me that your life is better because of me. I need you to tell me that you're doing something different because of me. I need you to tell me I just started investing because of you, or I'm raising my kids on wealth principles because of you, or me and my wife just bought our first duplex because of you. Like, that's when I'm literally counting up the cha-chings in my mind and thinking, yes, we're achieving the goal. Okay. So whenever we're doing these things, having these conversations, we got to get past Negroology. Negroology to me is where you just get people that are just talking just to be talking. Like, I talk a lot and I'll talk about everything. I love talking about all different kinds of topics. I don't give a fuck what anybody thinks. Like, oh, dog, why are you talking about that? Why you waste your time on that? Because, motherfucker, I got up this morning and decided that's what I want to talk about. You don't like it, go somewhere else. Please shut the fuck up. But here's the thing. I talk about anything and everything, and I love to talk about it because when you are a teacher, when you're really, get into the scholarly stuff, I think a lot. One thing I learned is that the best university in the world is called the University of Life. The world is a great place to learn lots of stuff. It's a great place to reflect on broad principles and theories in a way that's applicable. And I don't know about you, when I was young, school bored the shit out of me, because if you give me knowledge in a vacuum, like you give me a book and you're like, well, the periodic table says that the element blah 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 mixes with this and the molecules and the atoms, and there's no context, like you don't give me any context, I'm not going to obtain that information because I'm not going to see any relevance for it. But if you give me the knowledge and information in a way that I can relate to, like if I say, well, economic theory relates deeply to love and sex, then I'll be like, oh, really? How? Right? Or let's explain American politics by talking about slavery or dealing with your mother, when you're a kid. You know what I mean? Like, then I'm like, oh, okay, now I get it, right? That's when the light bulbs go off, right? So that's a strength that I've always had. I don't know. I think I developed the strength because I needed to do that in order for education to be relevant to me. Just in case and don't know, my grades in high school were absolutely terrible. So that's why I say you don't give up on your kids. But when I was in high school, my grades were really, really bad. And they got better in college because I was connecting knowledge to things I wanted. I connected knowledge to, like, wait a minute, if I learn this stuff, I can get a good job making a lot of money. That's my mindset at that time. I didn't even know anything about entrepreneurship and all that. If I'd known about this, I would have done all that back when I was 16 years old. But, it was like it had to connect to something, right? So ultimately, at the end of the day, there are always teachable moments. There are always things we can learn from. And the number one thing you learn if you're trying to be a good teacher is you have to humble yourself and know that there's more out there that you don't know than there is that you do know. And if you can't accept that, then you become a know-it-all. And nobody likes a know-it-all. And know-it-alls end up losing because you don't want to always be the smartest person in the room. That makes you look silly, that you end up leading people in the wrong direction. You want to constantly be consuming information and understanding things, right? That's how you find wisdom. That's how you find yourself. That's how you find your bliss. That's how you find true happiness in this world, in my opinion. Understanding life and understanding you, and then committing to you, like loving you enough to say, I know what's best for me and I know what's going to work for me. And I'm going to pursue that regardless of what other people think. Right? That's really important. You have to do that because these people that have these opinions about you, they don't even know you. They don't even know what's going to make you happy or anything. So why would you take their opinion and advice? It's kind of silly, right? So anyway, let's see. Jay Davis says we enjoyed your $5 a day investing book. Well, thank you. The $5 a day book, I think it's on Amazon or something. But you can actually go there and or look it up on the internet. I'm sure somewhere around. And it's a $5 a day investing plan where basically I break down and explain how a family can literally get out of poverty in one generation by investing $5 a day in the stock market. The math is very straightforward, very simple. So, it's kind of an anecdote to the people who think that being born poor means you have to stay poor. That's why I can't stand the damn liberals half the damn time. I'm like, why would you feed defeatist ideas to black people? Like, and I get it. I know why they feed you defeatist ideas. This is my issue with Dr. King and the civil rights movement. It tied us too much into the liberals. Right? That's my issue. So I love Dr. King, but I don't love the whole civil rights movement. I think Dr. King, pay attention now, Dr. King, when he died, was about maybe a decade younger than I am now. I believe that by the time Dr. King got my age, he would be saying what I'm saying now. Because when I was his age, when he died, I was saying similar things to what he said when he died. And if you pay attention, right before Dr. King died, what was he talking about? Can anybody guess what Dr. King started talking about right before he died? It starts with the letter M. What did Dr. King start talking about right before they shot his ass? Right? What was he talking about? Starts with the letter M. Somebody guess. What was he talking about? Super Omega said it right. Yep. He started talking about money, military. He started talking about that too. Yep, Marquise, you got that right. Yeah, Muslim. I don't remember Muslim, but money and military, right? Mostly money, but military too, because military connects to money. It's M&M, right? When Dr. King started talking about the money, and then he started threatening the Vietnam War, which ultimately threatens the money and really speaks to taking real power away from the power brokers. That's when they were like, okay, we got to get rid of him. Because it's fine if you want to march down the street and sing "We Shall Overcome" and let us beat you upside the head with billy clubs so you can get the right to come give us all your money by spending your money in our stores. Like that, like you fighting for the wrong damn thing. But that's a reflection of the fact that many members of the civil rights movement, including Dr. King, a lot of the leadership was not, they were young, right? They did what they thought made sense, right? When you're young, you do things like that. Like you think like Whitley on A Different World. There was an episode where Whitley goes into a department store. Anybody remember this episode? She goes into this department store and the white lady tricks her by basically making her think that she doesn't really want her there. Like she's kind of stuck up. So Whitley, in order to prove that she belongs in the store, she goes in there and buys everything in the store. You remember that? Well, Whitley went back to the store and was like, I'll take 2 of those and 1 of those, and I'll take that watch, and yes, I can't afford it, right? And then somebody tells her, like, no, you don't give her your money to prove yourself to her. You don't owe her any explanation. You don't have to prove yourself to this stupid lady, right? And so Whitley went back and gave everything back. Right. And so that's kind of what it is with Black folks, right? When our self-esteem was low, we were trying to prove that we were worthy. We were like, well, how dare you tell us we don't have the right to come into your department store and give you all our money? What you trying to say? You trying to say we can't afford it? You trying to say we ain't good enough? Right. But then later on, there were people who were like, wait a minute, we were always good enough. We were always good enough. Like, why would we have to prove anything to them? They weren't going to prove anything. You got to prove yourself to us. We're the original man. We're the ones who've led this country in terms of culture and made the greatest economic contributions in the history of this nation. We're the ones who survived the Middle Passage and Jim Crow and slavery and mass incarceration and still came out on top. We're the ones who set fashion trends that operate throughout the world. We're the ones who created some of the greatest art forms in the history of this planet. So you got to prove yourselves to us. We're not looking up to you. Why would we look up to you when actually maybe you should be looking up to us? I mean, who is greater than the Black man and the Black woman when we're operating at our best? Well, we're on top of our stuff. Like, we can't be touched in certain areas. Like, we are literally, in some ways, an extraordinary species. And I think it comes from what we've gone through. Nobody's had think about this. No, they say no pain, no gain. Well, what does that mean? That means that the people who typically go through the most pain get the most gain. The people who work out the hardest tend to be the strongest. The ones who go through the most hell get the highest levels of heaven. The ones who go through the greatest struggle are the ones who have the most progress. The athlete who trains the hardest is the one who usually wins the race, right? The one who's gone through the toughest practices is the one who shows up best prepared to play. So who has gone through a tougher experience in this country than Black people? Nobody. So in some ways, you could actually make the argument that we are almost like a breed of superhumans to them. I mean, it is an ugly experience they got us here, right? I mean, you're working 16 hours a day for no pay at all, trying to make these quotas. If you don't make them, you're going to get whipped. They have breeding farms where they took the biggest, strongest slaves and bred them with each other. I mean, you're talking about situations where it was literally life or death for us to learn certain skills in order to survive. The Jews went through hell for about 6 or 7 years in Germany. We went through that same hell for 400, at least 250, 300 years. Some would say longer than that, right? Our Holocaust has lasted since we got here, 1619, and it's still continuing to this day. So, who should be looking up to who? I mean, who's really on top of this thing in terms of toughness? I don't know a single tough person or a skilled person or a wise person who hasn't gone through hell in order to get there. So usually the most hell you go through, the greater your blessing is. Sometimes struggle really can be a blessing if you look at it on the other side. The pot of gold at the end of the rainbow is always bigger if you went through more to get to the end of that rainbow, right? So that's so my take on it at the end of the day is that we have to reassess everything. One of the things the Democrats do in terms of pulling a rope-a-dope on you is they'll say something like, You know, like with Jamel Hill wrote that article saying that black athletes need to go to HBCUs, and there are Republicans and Democrats who accused her of promoting segregation, saying that she's a racist. She's like sounds like a Trump supporter. That's kind of like third grader language to make, you know, where a little kid really thinks that they tricked you when really it's not. Anybody who's intelligent enough to understand it realizes that actually integration was the great trap for black people. Integrate desegregation is fine. Integration was the big economic trap. That's when your wealth gap really started growing out of control. That's when your kids started imitating white kids and acting a damn fool. That was when your children were not being properly educated. That was when you started losing your communities. That was when black quality of life started to decline, right? So ultimately, segregation, to some extent, self-segregation, voluntary segregation, right, is actually the solution for black people, right? So now that does not fit into a Democratic or Republican box, right? Because being politically correct, that usually does not mean you're correct. Political correctness is not correctness. It is political correctness, which means you fit into a certain political box. And that's why I tell black people that if you want my opinion, I believe we should abandon both the Democratic and Republican parties, because what happens is they have you out here looking crazy and looking stupid. They have you looking stupid. You know, they have you contradicting yourself, sounding dumb, sounding crazy, sounding weird, and you don't know why. Well, it's because you haven't been allowed in your own world. You know, you haven't allowed yourself the right to shape your own paradigm of what it means to be black in this country. Everybody else has shaped their paradigm for you. So the Democrats say, well, you know, well, blackness means that, you know, you can't say this because then you sound like a Trump supporter, which meant even that when they broke down that white lady that Jay-Z gave the money to in Chicago, he gave a bunch of money to a white lady in Chicago who was cutting off the little boy's dreads and all that, which I don't agree with at all. I think that's kind of crazy. In fact, I think he should be giving that money to black activists on the ground in Chicago. Not, you know, I mean, no disrespect to the white lady. I'm sure she's trying her best, but you got real black activists down here from the Nation of Islam on across the board who are really going into these hoods and really getting things done. And I'm actually joining the board of a domestic violence shelter down in Inglewood also. And, you know, so a lot of the problems there can be solved, but you have to put the resources in the hands of the people that can solve these problems. So anyway, you know, what they were doing was they were basically calling out Jay-Z by aligning, you know, by saying you gave money to a person whose values align with the Republicans, which means you gave money to a racist, right? So, you know, the lady said some things like all lives matter. She said something about the cops, like she has a little program where the kids become cops, and it's fine. I don't agree with any of those things, but I think that this idea. Oh, and she was a Trump supporter, right? And so my thought at the same time is like, so are we really supposed to feel better if she's a card carrying Democrat? I mean, is that what you're saying? Like, are you saying that if she were a white liberal who aligned with the Democratic Party and said, I love Bernie Sanders, I love Hillary Clinton, I love Elizabeth Warren, that that's okay? Well, I'm sorry, it's not. It's not, because in my mind, she's still white. She's still a white lady. She still possesses white privilege. She still possesses a lot of the paternalism that you see coming from a lot of the white liberals. You know, remember that a lot of the white liberal females are the ones who come from the suburbs and come into the hoods and go teach at those schools and destroy your black boys. You know, they come down to the hood, and these are the women I used to fight with when I went to school. These were the, you know, ladies that did not understand me, had me in detention every day because they didn't love me the way I think a black teacher would have loved me. They didn't love me the way a black male teacher, I think, could have really guided me and taught me how to be a man. They had an idea of manhood that was based on this premise that little black boys are little roaches that are filled with toxic masculinity in the making, and that their job was to feminize us and weaken us, emasculate us to the point where we are no longer a threat to them. So the first thing they tried to do with me when I got into kindergarten was put me on drugs. First thing they did. Now, to their credit, to tell you about the nuances of all this, here's what's fascinating. My mother was a young mother when she gave birth to me. She was 17 years old, and she told me that when she was about 21, 22, there was a white lady actually who was a little woker than most white folks, and she told her straight up when I was in kindergarten. She said, "When your son goes to school, just know your son is going to be targeted. They're going to try to put him on drugs." She said, "Do not do that because your son is smart. He is a genius, and they're gonna, but he likes to run his mouth. He likes to jump up and down. He likes to be active, but they're gonna misinterpret that to mean he has a learning disability, and they're gonna try to put him on drugs. Don't you dare let them put your son on drugs. That's what she said. And so ultimately, it's not to say that we're here to hate anybody, but I'm just telling you guys, you got to really stop and kind of look at the game and kind of understand what it is. See, the blueprint for Black success is never going to come out of a white textbook. White folks ain't never wrote nothing to, ain't never sit around and wrote nothing on how Black people can be, strong assets and contributors to their own community, right? They just don't. I'm not hating, I don't hate them. I don't hate anybody, but I'm just telling you, like all of the reason a lot of your blueprints are failing is because they were written by somebody who's competing with you. When the New England Patriots go line up on the football field, they are not going to allow the other team to design their playbook. That would be stupid. That would be ridiculous. So if you want to win, you're going to have to design your own playbook for Blackness, right? And that's the goal. So if you want to know what my goal is always to say, okay, what's the playbook for Black success? What does that look like? What should be the goal, and how do you get there? Okay, well, the goal is, all right, let's see, we need to educate our own kids so they don't get screwed up in the public school system. So that's how we formed our Black core of 3. Okay, we must educate our own children. Don't hand our kids over to their oppressor, because the oppressor ain't gonna do nothing but fuck them up. Educate our own kids, create our own jobs. We got to create our own jobs, because that's where we lose. That's another place where we lose points. We end up begging for jobs our whole lives, and we end up kowtowing and begging and borrowing and getting on our knees and trying to tickle the balls of some white man so that we don't get in trouble. Here you are, you 35, 40 years old, you worried about getting in trouble. Well, you can't really say that. Well, who said you can't say that? Oh, I get it. Massa said you can't say that. That's why you're scared. Okay, so we still got that slave blood in us, right? Okay, so we must educate our own children, create our own jobs. Well, what does that mean to create our own jobs? Well, that means we need more entrepreneurs. We need millions, at least tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of Black entrepreneurs. So we need entrepreneurship centers planted in every hood across America. We need conversations about ownership and wealth building and real estate and investing and the capitalization, so that we can prepare, we can build the infrastructure for the next generation, right? Your job right now is not to so much get rich for yourself. Your job is to build the infrastructure so that your children will have an easier job than you. A lot of y'all started off with nothing. How many of y'all in here never got an inheritance in your life? Like nobody ever left you shit, parents, grandparents, uncles, nobody left you anything. Anybody else in that category where ain't nobody never left you nothing? You ain't never had no, or at least more than $10,000? Let's use that as the benchmark. How many of you have never been left more than $10,000 by anybody who ever died? Like never gotten more than 10,000. I'm raising my hand first, because I'm right there with y'all. I'm right there with you. Okay, I see Dual raised their hand. Yeah, it's pretty common. Now, here's another question I'm gonna ask you guys. Like a yes or no on this. How many of you thought that was normal to just be left with nothing? Like, how many of y'all just thought that was just, part of being Black? Like, that's what's supposed to happen. You ain't supposed to have nothing. You're supposed to start with nothing and then you build up. Anybody else believe that bullshit? Like, you're supposed to just literally start with nothing and go through struggle and hell until finally maybe one day a white man gives you a job and you have a better life. I thought it was normal. I really thought it was normal. And it's even when it's not normal anymore, it's hard to renormalize your behavior to make sure that you don't create an abnormal normality, right? That you don't take something that's not normal and make it into what you think is regular and realistic. It's not regular and realistic. You're not supposed to come into this world with no assets. That's not supposed to happen. It's not hard to leave a child $50,000. It's a piece of cake. Very easy to do. Basic insurance policies can do that, right? Simply investing, half of the amount of money we spend on fast food. You did that in the stock market. Your kids have maybe $100,000, And so ultimately, what our job is to see a vision for the future. Because this thing ain't gonna end. White people ain't gonna stop being white. Racism ain't never gonna come to an end. And understand accept the idea that even though you are worthy and you are capable of doing anything you put your mind to, your role is limited in this thing. Your legacies last for hundreds and hundreds of years. You're gonna be here for less than 100 years. Most of y'all gonna be here 60, 70, 80, 90 years max. So that's all you got. So the main thing you can do during this generation is plant seeds to lay out infrastructure for the next generation. Make sure that you give them enough game to understand what the rules should be and how they should move forward, so that they can then take what you left and build on top of that, right? Like Jeff Bezos was talking about, the founder of Amazon. He gave a great speech where he was talking about the 300, 400-year future of all humanity. And he was basically saying, the future is we can't live on Earth forever. We're going to have to eventually leave, but going to Mars isn't the only thing we can do. He said we can actually build a planet in the sky, in space. And I was like, how do you build a planet? He basically described it. He said you take something that's literally about 100,000 times bigger than the space station, and you basically can create artificial environments and create an artificial world where people can live in this artificial world. And it's not a planet, right? Planets are hard. It's hard to live on Mars, right? He was literally just described. Here's this billionaire. I mean, billionaire. This guy's, he's really built something. His company probably makes a couple $100 million a day or something, right? So he knows how to build things, and he's literally describing this vision that I thought was amazing. But the thing was, I was like, are you trying to build this soon? Because you don't have the technology. And he said that the goal is not to build it now. We can't build it now. He said your goal is to lay out the infrastructure. He said, he said I couldn't have started Amazon if the U.S. Postal Service had not been laid out, and giving me the infrastructure to get packages to the customers so I could build on top of that, right? So he said our job in this generation is to build roads that will get us to space easily, and technology, communications technology and everything else, so that we can do things like, I don't know, maybe an elevator into space, or easily go back and forth to the moon with reusable rockets or whatever, or better Wi-Fi so we can communicate in space or whatever. And then the next generation builds on top of that. Right? They can build level 2 because you already took care of level 1. You feel me? So for Black people, we got to see not just stop seeing a level 1 vision. We need to see a level 10 vision and realize that maybe our job is to build level 1 or level 2 and let the kids build level 3, level 4, and level 5. But they can't build level 3 if we haven't built level 1 and level 2. Do you follow what I'm saying? So level 1 means, okay, I was born broke. My kids ain't gonna be born broke. I'll make sure my kids, grandkids, everybody, that they have at least $50,000, $100,000 in working capital that they can use, so that they can go do something special and not have to spend their life chasing a job or being a financial slave because they're so buried under student loan debt that they can't move. Right? Like that should be your goal. Okay. So just sort of think about this. And remember, as a community, we have to have a vision. Dr. King, he gave his life, but what did he give his life for? He didn't give his life for anything if we sit still and we don't build off of what he did, and Malcolm and all the other millions of people that fought with him. I think that every generation has an obligation. And I believe that rather than us sitting around and admiring these people and putting them on pedestals, we should probably realize, okay, they did their job. Now we've got a job to do. What are you going to do in your family that's going to move forward that legacy? Ask yourselves that question tonight, and that's what I want to leave you guys with. I'm about to go. I know what I'm going to do. I'm about to go in there and hang out with my woman because she has been very patient with me tonight and let me talk to you guys, even though we have one of our favorite shows. It's a show on HBO called Succession, which you may want to check it out. It's all about legacy. It's this billionaire family trying to figure out what they're going to do with their dumbass kids. And it's actually a common problem. Most wealthy families lose, 70% of all wealthy families lose all their wealth in one generation. 90% lose all their wealth in 2 generations. I don't know if you guys know that or not, but that's true. So Succession kind of is typical in that way. But anyway, let's finish up. Do me a favor. If you are subscribed on YouTube, hit that notification bell so that you'll get notified every time I go live. That way I don't have to sort of pace out when I go live. Like I go live whenever I have something interesting to say. So if you're in like that and you like what's going on here, hit that notification bell and you'll get notified whenever we go live. Another way is actually you can text the word Boyce to 31996, and that's 31996. The problem with that, though, is that it costs us money to send out text messages. So I only do maybe 2 or 3 of those a week. Can't do those every day because it costs money to do that. But if you hit the notification bell, then I can hit you up every time. If you're on Facebook, go subscribe at drboycetv.com. If you want to be a part of our daily conversations, we always hit intelligent stuff. Those who want to support the platform, feel free to go to blackfinancialintelligence.com. You can buy books like Powernomics, Black Labor, White Wealth, financial flashcards, Black Business School apparel, whatever it is you want. That's blackfinancialintelligence.com. Also, don't forget All Black National Convention is coming up September 27th. That's allblacknationalconvention.com. And I'll be in New York shortly after that. That's drboycenewyork.com. So you can go to either one of those URLs to check out those events. And I think that's pretty much it. So have a good night, guys. And it was real. And thanks for listening. And I hope that I helped you guys in some way. Please hit the thumbs up button before you go. And I shall see you soon. Be good. Peace.